Welcome to Spacious Creative. I am Cindy Ingram.
And I am Heather Doyle Fraser. And in this podcast, we're exploring the process and practice of creativity, but with the foundation in compassion.
In this limited series, we'll dive into how creative expression shows up in our lives, from childhood inspirations to the challenges of perfectionism and everything in between.
Whether you're reconnecting with your inner child or reimagining your creative identity and how you can harness more creativity in your life, Spacious Creative is here to inspire and support your journey.
Okay, so in our last conversation, we talked about how we had this period of time where we stopped being creative or, writing, making art. And we thought we could dive into what that period looked like and why we shut down and all of the things. So
yeah, and how it sometimes can be a repeating cycle feeling. Yeah. So for you, Cindy, what did that look like?
I think looking back, I think it is started in college when I was getting my art history degree. And so I'd already decided I wanted to be a museum educator. I wanted to study art history, but I had been writing and making art all along, while studying art history. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to journal like crazy. Like I just journal after journal after journal. I would write so much. But I took, for my art history degree, I had to take four studio art classes. And I remember I was in drawing one and I loved it. It was so fun just to go and like spend 4 hours twice a week just drawing. And I was covered in charcoal. It looked like I'd been like coal mining every day. And it was so relaxing and I learned so much. And it was that same experience that I talked about in our first episode, which was there were people in the classroom who obviously had a natural gift for it. Like they just did it better than
And
me.
also probably had been practicing it for a
Yeah,
while.
they had. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had been drawing and drawing and drawing too. So it's like there is practice will I maybe could get to the point that there's one girl in particular, I can't remember her name, but everything she drew was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like
in your eyes.
In my eyes, yeah. And we were studying modeling of this certain shading technique and she just mastered it instantly. And anything we did, she just mastered it instantly. And I'm over here just like slaving over the charcoal and I couldn't figure it out. And so I had my end of the semester critique, and in the hallway outside of the room we would lay out all our drawings. It was just the student and the professor. And the professor, and I can't remember his name, but he said, "You're the hardest working student in this class." And I was like, I am. I work really hard at that. I'm trying so hard. And then I get my final grade and it was a B. And I was like, what? I felt like I could not have done anything more.
Yeah.
But that, and I just tried so hard and I just couldn't be as good as that one girl. And there was probably a couple in the class, but she just really stands out. And I think that really shut me down, is like, you know what, they're like, I just don't have the talent for this. Like, and looking back, that's such a limited view of art. Like drawing is such a small part of art right now.
And
but
we know now comparison is a creativity killer.
Yes. Yes. But that is what I always did my whole life. Is I was constantly, I think, because as a neurodiverse person who didn't know they were neurodiverse, I was constantly comparing myself to other people because I was like, I know I feel different. So I need to like do what they're doing because that's what normal people do. So I'll do that. Yeah. And so I was constantly comparing myself. Well, I still do it. I try not as much as I used to, but it's hard to to not do. And then
Right.
at the same time, I'm learning all this art history and I'm seeing all this amazing art and all this innovation and all this genius. And I'm like, I'll never get to that point. I can't be that good. So I can't be perfect at it. Might as well not do it at all.
Hmm.
And I did dabble a little bit here and there. Like in, I went into an art career. I was a museum educator and then I was an art teacher. And so I would make, samples for my class or, like a poster for the pep rally or, I like one year I didn't have any money. So I made paintings for my family. I made the portraits
I
of
did that too.
themselves. Did you? Like I painted pictures of them and I had no business doing that. They don't look anything like them. And they probably were like, oh, now I'm stuck with this thing. Do I have to display it? But
I did abstract. I did
yes.
abstract.
What was I thinking with portraits? I put my father-in-law in a pink shirt and he was deeply offended because he does not think the men should wear pink. But it was the right color for the color of the painting. It was the best
Right.
artistic choice. But really I think that's when I really shut down because I saw all the studio art students and all the art history and I was just like it was a deliberate choice of like I'm not smart enough, I'm not creative enough, I'm not talented enough. This will never lead to success and I was all about being successful.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so what about you?
Well, like I said, I think that there are these cycles of
Mm-hmm.
creativity coming in and then retreating, or you shutting, or me shutting down that. And I think that that first shutdown, after first grade was really about like, oh, I mean, looking back on it now is really about like, oh, creativity, me being creative and shiny and expressing myself in this way isn't really safe. And so, what is safe? Safe is being good. What is good? Good is being quiet and getting straight
Mm-hmm.
A's.
Yep.
So, I really was dedicating myself to that kind of standard. And of course, I was still singing and things like that because that was a part of my family of origin and that was never going to go away. So I had like some creative out and I was writing, but not for like pleasure, not for
Yeah.
that, like I talked about that little version of myself in the Holly Hobby house. Like she was doing that for herself. She was totally doing that because it felt good, because she felt contented before, because she wasn't even going to share that. It was just hers.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do anything really like that until like that teen time when you're like, oh gosh, well, not even teen, like preteen, like all of these emotions. What do I do with this? Then, like I searched out that experience again that felt like, oh, I can do this and that's good. And then that shuts down again, kind of for the same reasons, like really like, oh, college is coming. You gotta gotta do these things to get in a good college and get the scholarships and do all that. And I still had the singing. So I was always like touching creativity and
Yeah.
touching expression, but not fully immersing in it. Like not allowing, like it was like kind of like not allowing myself to go there almost. Which, of course, when you like push something away, it makes you feel like I'm not as creative as I used to be. I'm not inspired. Why am I like, I look at a blank page and it's just a blank page versus when I was little and like the blank page was full of possibility. Now, as when I was older, it was like, what is this?
Yeah, and
Blank
it's
page.
almost you get out when once I find this now too, just even I have small cycles where it's like I'll get
Right.
out of the habit for a couple weeks
Yeah.
and then just getting back into it is hard because once you're in like a creative space where you're doing creative things regularly, it's like creativity begets creativity. Like the more you do it, the more
That's what I would say.
yeah, the
Yeah.
more you like even if it's like I don't know. It's just your subconscious clicks on. It's like, oh, we do this now. This is what we're doing. So we're always on the lookout for something
Yes.
new to say
You're
and do
you're
and
on the lookout for the
make.
possibility and all that.
Yeah.
And I think that even, like after college, when like when I was 16, I was like, I'm going to write a book. And then I was like, oh, I don't think I can write a book. Like that seems too impossible to me. Like when I graduated from college, even though I was like writing some poetry and things like that. But I had a memory actually pop up that I had shared some poetry with of mine. I had shared some with my husband now, but of course I was dating him then, and he loved it so much that he shared it with a professor of his. He was in grad school, and she just like ripped it to shreds. And
Oh,
and I was like, "Oh no." Like first of all, he was so proud of it, like that he wanted to share it, but he didn't realize like first of all, he didn't ask me. But second, it just was not like I didn't have control over that. It wasn't,
it was that nun all over again,
it
but
was the
through
nun again.
it's
Ah,
the same thing.
it is. And I think that, um, looking back on that, she might have been a frustrated creator too. Like she could have been that too.
Yes.
And my exuberance, maybe, I don't know, who knows, but it doesn't matter. That definitely shut me down. And I was like, ah, I can't, who was I think, what was I thinking to write a book? But then I was like, well, I could help people write books. I've done,
Yeah.
like, so that's when I went into publishing. And again, it's kind of like an adjacent job, like it's very creative because you're helping people to do. I mean, I was developing manuscripts and all that, but it's not my own stuff
Hmm.
either. And
Yeah.
so there's this like constant, I'm making this happen for other people. And I just let that go. Like I mean, when they say things like every editor has a, manuscript in their desk drawer, yes, I think that's true. So, I mean, proverbial desk drawer now.
I I I think in the artist way she calls it shadow artists, but it's like that so many of us creative people, and I believe everybody is creative, but like there
I
are
do too.
certain people
Yeah,
that are just, it is just it is like in every cell of their being, like they just are, it's just something that drives them forward. But a lot of those people have these stories that shut them down, but they go into careers that they get to be creative, they get to be around creative people, they still get to like
be
live
close
in
to it.
creativity. Yeah, they're just right next to it. And that's what I did, in museum education, art teaching, entrepreneurs and business owners. That's a very creative
Yep,
job.
yep,
Like marketing people, graphic designers. Like
yep,
there's so many people that are just like right on the edge
yep,
of creativity.
yep.
But I've talked to so
Like
many
on the edge
people.
of creating for themselves,
Yeah, for
right?
themselves. Right. They still get to be creative, but not for themselves. And I've talked to so many people because I work, with art teachers a lot. And it's like there's always this feeling in the back of their head or back of their heart, or that's just like, I'm not, I'm not doing what I'm meant to be doing. There's something deeper here for me. There's something more I can do. It's like this pull or this call, and I
Yeah.
think so many people can hear that, or they might be shut down enough where they don't hear it. I didn't hear it for a while either, but they just
They
don't
ignore
listen
it.
to it.
Yeah.
It's too scary. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
safe. They're not going to be good at it. They're not, there's so many of the stories that we make up that will keep them from following that thread.
And I also think that there is this misconception too that like I have to leave this part of my life in order to do this other thing.
Yes.
And that's not true either. You know, like I was saying about that little version of me in the first episode in that Holly Hobby house, I wasn't doing that for anyone but me. Like I wasn't,
Yeah.
and that's and creativity can bring such, I mean, creating can bring such richness to your life, even if you're not sharing it on a mass scale. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be on a mass scale to be valuable. And
Yeah. When I had that like download I told you about last time, where the message was clear that I needed to make art, my first thought was, I can't make money doing that. And I'm like, it's not even like I
why are
can
we
keep
putting the
doing what I'm
pressure?
doing
Yeah. Why are we
and
putting the
also make
pressure?
art. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like But I think that's part of our culture is such a productivity driven society.
And it's very binary. So like either this
Yes.
or this. It's not like, oh, we could do both things.
Yeah. Yeah. And for a while when I started making art again and writing, the writing felt different because it was in a way felt it was productivity driven because there was going to be a book at the end. So
Right.
like that felt a little bit different. But making art was like when I would just play around in my
Mhm.
art journal, and I knew that it was like not it was going to be in the art journal. There's no, I can't like go sell it or do anything with it because it's just in this book. There were times when I was like, oh, I should be doing something productive. I should be like doing the dishes or the laundry or the whatever. There's like nagging in the back of my head. I'm like, you're not accomplishing anything here today. um
And yet you are,
yes.
right? Like,
I was wrong. Yes, that voice was wrong.
yes, I mean, like as humans now and right where we are right now, we have a lot of things that we do either to distract or to, out of, like to create a sense of feeling connected or pleasure, whatever. That could be scrolling social media, that could be watching TV, that could be watching a movie, that could be listening to podcasts, all of these different things. If you just replaced teeny tiny percentage of that with some like creation for yourself, what would that do for your experience of life, like your continued experience of life?
Yeah.
I know what it does for me. It's pretty awesome.
It's pretty amazing. What
You
does it do
learn
for you?
about yourself so much, and you learn about the world so much. Like you're able, when you slow down to create, whether it's writing or some other kind of art, you're you're expressing yourself, but you're also like processing things and you're exploring things. It's there's so many things happening when you are creating that I
Yeah.
don't think people realize.
And you're
Um,
fully, and it's not, doesn't feel like a distraction like those other things you listed. It feels like you're fully present and mindful in the moment.
yeah.
You're paying attention to your surroundings. Like, when I'm painting or collaging or whatever it is I'm doing, like I'm fully engaged like with all of my senses and like in that sort of flow, but while at the same time doing something with my hands, while at the same time like processing like my current present day life. And that doesn't happen, when you're
Mhm.
doing things that are more distracting. It's a little
Mhm.
more
And
present.
I think that also people don't realize everything that's involved in a creative process. Like it is, yes, it is the act of like creating in that moment. Like, for instance, if I'm talking about writing, yes, it is when you're writing. And it's also when you're reading. And it's also when you're
Mm.
pre-writing in your head and thinking about what you're going to write. And it's also when you jot down some notes. And it's also like, there are so many things happening. It's when you're observing and you hear someone say something that is like, wow, that phrase, I want to use that somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to use it yet, but I'm going to jot it down in this little notebook that I keep with me everywhere. Thing there, the process is bigger. It is that present moment, just like you said,
Yeah.
and the process is bigger even than that too. It's like
Yeah.
a whole bunch of present moments happening.
I love it because when I'm in a creative state, like yeah, it seeps into every aspect of my being, and it adds like a vitality and an inspiration and a spark and a like excitement to
Yeah.
my life that is just really thrilling. Like even the other day, I was I think it might have been the middle of the night. Sometimes I do this. So I wake up in the middle of the night and have poems to write. But I was, oh yeah, I could sleep in the middle of the night. And so I started to read, and I just happened to read a part of this book that was a little bit too close to my personal experience of life, and I started to cry, and I was like sobbing about this thing that happened in my life, being vague because, but then I started thinking about my book. And anyway, long story short, it was like I remembered how this guy, I can't, every time I think of him, I think of douchebag, but he he asked me if my book was ghostwritten.
Mm.
And I was like,
That's offensive. Yeah.
yeah. I was like, God, why didn't I respond back to that? And I said no, obviously. But then suddenly I'm like, I wrote a whole poem about about the idea of ghost written. I didn't finish the poem. I wrote the first draft, but it was just like, when you are being creative regularly, like those little emotions, the things in your life, the thoughts that you have, like they become something
You have access.
else.
Yeah, yeah, like you have access too. Like it's not like, I mean, when you have that door shut, you don't have access to that.
Yeah.
But then when you have it open and you're constantly engaging with it, and when you said like suddenly this poem came, well, really? Suddenly? No, because that person said that whenever they said that, and it was hanging out in your head. And that's kind of like the unknown, like pre-writing happening sometimes, just hanging out there. And when it had hung out there enough, then seemingly suddenly this whole poem came. But you had been
True.
thinking about it for a bit.
Right. Yeah. He said that in November, and then it just popped in my head in the middle of the night in
Right.
June,
Yeah. Yeah.
related to a thought process of a different situation with my book, but it was just like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. Like it's just every now and then I just pops in my mind. I'm like, ghost written. No. And I was like, okay, so people get their books ghost written. I get it. But then, there was just something brewing. And then all of a sudden I was thinking about like my book and like the ghosts of all the versions of me that are in the book and that wrote the book. And so it's going to be a lovely poem when I get it.
Yeah.
I was,
Can't wait to read it.
I know, I was thinking of actually finishing it this week, so maybe I will. Um, but yeah, it's just, and even when I was writing my book, I have so many stories of fiction books that I was reading
Yeah.
that if I hadn't been reading that book at that moment, that chap, like especially that chapter with the Jaws painting, like that would not be
Yeah.
the same, and it wouldn't
Well,
be as great.
let's talk about that for a second, because you and I have talked a lot about this, how some people think they cannot take anything in when they're creating because they
Yes.
want to be influenced by anything. I'm having trouble forming words
Yeah,
because
she has
when
a
you're
very exasperated look on her face. People moving her mouth as if words are coming out, but there are no words.
not. So that is just a fallacy. It's a misunderstanding. It's a misconception. I mean, when we talk about how creativity begets creativity, especially in something like writing, you need to be a good reader in order to be a good writer. You have to. You have
Yeah.
to end multiple genres, please, because you will learn things from other writers. You will learn things about story and characterization and like all of these things, because when you read, you know what you like and you know what resonates with you. And when you're a good reader, you're like, oh, I love the pacing of this. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
love the cadence of her language. Oh, I love, or I really can't stand this. What is, I can't even hardly read this. Then that's when like I'm never writing anything like that. But when you're trying things out, you do try on little, like, I'm going to try that out. Like, I want to try writing this type of poem, or I want to try to like write from the perspective of blank, or I want to, if I'm writing, like some kind of fiction, I want to not start at the beginning of the story. What is that like if I start in the middle and then have flashbacks? Like you try different things out because you're exploring your voice, you're exploring your own craft. If you have no input whatsoever, it's much harder to do that. And it's much harder to be able to like see the things that you like and resonate with that you can share later on.
Yeah. And it really makes me think of this whole like that mindset is really related to the idea of like the artist as genius, that
Yeah.
you have this perfect genius in you and you just have to let it out, and you don't, it's already there and you can't. But that isn't true either, that
Nope.
these like tortured artists that just have, you know you have to have something to respond to, I think, to be creative. And like, even I think about throughout art history, like if you look at any artist that was like a big innovator, like Picasso or Van Gogh, like they were really big innovators of their time. Their art was really different. Like if you look in their early careers, Van Gogh was painting like the Impressionists were painting. Picasso was painting like he tried realism and all that. So he tried so many different things before he arrived at like what was
What is
his.
his, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what we do as creators, no matter what we're creating. Yeah. And that that voice evolves, whether it's in, a painting, drawing, words, it doesn't matter, but it that evolves over time. And like you said, the inspiration, if you truly were like, I don't want to have any influence, you would just need to stay in a dark room locked in there, never
No.
leaving. Because like anything can be inspiration. Walking down the street, I went on a walk a few years ago and was passing by this oak tree, and it was in the fall, so leaves were starting to fall and change color, and I could see the acorns and different things like that. And in that moment, I had this kind of epiphany around like, I could use this as a metaphor for the writing process. And I came home and I drew it as a tree and like what each piece symbolized to me in the writing process. I got that from walking down the street. That
Mhm.
I didn't get that from sitting in my office at my desk.
Yeah. What makes me think of is Hamilton and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Like, imagine if he had never seen a musical because he didn't want to, it didn't read any, like, it's,
Or never listened to any music, or
yeah,
never read any biographies,
yeah.
or like
He created that musical because he read Hamilton's biography, so it started from a reading. But then when you look at the music and throughout the whole thing, there are deliberate influences from lots of different musicians
right.
throughout the whole thing. Like the King George is like the Beatles, and then you have
Yes,
like a Destiny's Child moment, and you have like a all these different influences.
on purpose.
Yeah, and it
On
makes it
purpose.
better, and it makes it
Yes.
new, and something like that is something we've never seen before
Not only
that
does it
couldn't
make it new,
exist without all of that.
yeah, not only does it make it new, it also honors a legacy of creativity.
Yeah. Another thing this makes me think of too is that I think a lot of people, and me included for a long time, is I thought that I had to wait to be inspired to
Hmm.
make something,
Yeah.
and then I would make something, but I couldn't just, you know, start making something. I had to wait until that moment of inspiration.
Yeah. I think that's a huge misconception. Like, I need to be inspired to write. Well, if you show up to write, you will become inspired.
Yeah.
You show up, guess what? It will happen. And I mean, that also kind of goes to this other misconception, which is when you're creating, it always feels good. Like
Yeah.
if it doesn't feel good, then the actual thing you're making isn't good. And that's not true either. There's lots of days that feel middle or meh or average or yucky or anything, and fantastic and flow and
Yeah.
joy and effervescent and everything in between. And because like the creative process is like life, it is totally like life. And you have to have those moments that are not always the like mic drop moments. If you have a book that's just filled with mic drop moments, it's going to be exhausting for the reader. You have to have, you
Yeah,
have
I
to,
read one and I didn't even finish it. I was like, I can't read this. It was just one like quotable line after another. And
yeah,
I was like, this is too much.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it, I find, now that I've been in the habit of creating regularly, I went through in January, February, kind of like a depressive period. It was a depression, but I couldn't make art in the same way that I had before. Like I couldn't make a finished work of art. And I couldn't seem to like get anything finished or even written. But I found that like my creative practices were still there for me during that moment. So like I did during that period a bunch of like painted papers because I was just, making prints and like putting color on papers and just like creating stacks and stacks of, or I would take scraps from old collages and just glue them down. It was very like kind of soothing to do
Yeah.
that. And then I made just this week, I made an artwork using those painted papers that I had made in January. I made a bird out of those papers. And I was like, oh,
What a gift
like
to
at the
your
time I was
future
just,
self.
yeah. But it was like your creative practice can be there for you like throughout all of those things. You don't have to like wait until
Yeah.
some magical moment in the middle of the night writing a poem about ghostwriting. Like, yes, that's exciting and it does happen, but it's like it's
It's not the only thing that happens though.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not the norm. I would say that like that
Oh,
is
it's
the
not, yeah, it's not the norm. That's like the few and far between moments, but that's the moment that we're chasing
yes.
often as creatives. Like we are chasing that feeling of that effervescent, that like, oh my gosh, it just came to me type of feeling. And if you engage with a creative practice, whatever kind and multiple kinds, you recognize that every day is not the same, and that means nothing. It doesn't like define you as a creator. It just means it every day is a little different,
Yeah.
and you don't worry about it because you have done it enough to see, oh, that's just kind of the pattern. Oh, that I mean, like some days are like that. It doesn't like make you feel like I've lost my creativity now.
It's gone forever.
It's
Yeah.
gone forever.
I love when you break into accents. It's my favorite.
Sorry.
But oh, the accent totally threw me off what I was going to say to that.
Lost my creativity now.
Lost my
It's gone
creativity.
forever.
Oh, I got it. Okay. It reminded me of like this whole thing about um following the cycles of your creativities, your days, and some days are better and some days are feel a little harder. Like it's almost like that is practice for life. And I have found
It is
that
practice for life. It is totally practice for
yeah,
life.
my like being allowing myself to be creative just for me regularly has allowed me to have a lot more compassion and grace and forgiveness of myself in my regular life. Like I used to get really hard on myself if like I didn't do something right or whatever, but my creative practice has taught me like, oh, some days you just don't have the brain power to figure this out,
And
and
there's
that's true
nothing
in
wrong with
other.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like I feel like it just made me a more like a happier person, but also just a more like less shameful, more forgiving, more compassionate towards myself in all areas of my life and probably towards other people too. So yeah, it's
Yeah. I mean, like you're able to see things from different perspectives when you're
yeah,
actively creating, I think, because you're always looking for different perspectives. Like
yeah,
whether you're writing or drawing or painting, doing anything, you're actively engaging with other perspectives. Like, I wonder what it would be like from this way. I wonder if I change that this way. What would that look like? How would that change how this flows. Like you're constantly engaging with other perspectives. So if you generalize that to other areas of your life, you're really practiced at it. You're actively practicing it without realizing it.
And that brings in curiosity, because when you're looking at creativity and you're looking at things from different perspectives, you're doing that with curiosity, you're doing it without judgment. And that's what I'm finding I can do in my regular life now, is like any problems I feel like I'm having, I can look at them with curiosity and not without judgment. And that makes a
That's
huge
very
difference.
compassionate. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the coming from a compassionate mindset.
Yeah. Oh, we're fired up about this stuff. It's so good.
Fired up. I can't. I'm going into accents and everything. I can't even.
Okay, so I wonder, let me think. So say our listener is in, they see themselves in this periods of shutdown that we were talking about, that they're maybe in a creativity adjacent career. They're feeling that call to be creative. Like, what would you tell them to do?
Well, there's a lot I would say to do, but I think at the beginning, like is there any part of like a creative process that feels safe to you? Is there any part that feels safe? Or if there's something that feels almost safe enough, what could make that feel a little safer to you? Like whether it's finding a very small piece of paper in order to do something on, so it doesn't feel like I got to fill up this whole thing, or it's just like drawing some dots on a page and connecting them with lines, or it's writing one sentence, or even, a phrase that feels good to you, or maybe experiencing art more. Maybe that is, like a way to enter into a little more safety with it. Like you don't have to start, like I said, good writers are good readers. If you have like let the reading, I talked to so many people who say to me things like, I used to read so much and now I don't. And I don't really know why. So what if you picked up a book and read for 5 minutes? What would that look like? What would that do for you? So I would say like smallest increment pieces you can find that feel safe is a place to start.
Yeah. And I have something to add to that.
I know you do.
This is that they should come to our workshop that we're doing on
June. Oh yeah, because we're doing all those things.
Yeah, July 24th at 6.
Because we're doing all those things.
No, I'm like, oh, I gotta make sure I get the date right before I say it wrong. July 24th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We are doing a workshop called Trust Your Why. Your creative comfort zone needs you. And we would love to have you there, because if you're feeling that call to be creative, you're feeling like this conversation is really resonant to you and you want to get to that place of creative flow, we have some really good exercises for you and content that will help you find that safety for yourself so that you can start creating for you.
And I would even say, I think that workshop will give you an experience of that.
Yes.
Not just like give you content and exercises, but like being there will give you the experience of feeling safe with art.
Yes. Oh, because we're going to look at an artwork, but I don't want to spoil it, but it's so good. And you're going to want to see that because it's going to be very inspirational for you as well. So you can register for that at cindyingram.com/trust. And it'll be on Zoom. It'll be amazing. Both of us will be there. And we hope to have you there.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spacious Creative. We hope you found inspiration and insights to give you some momentum on your creative journey.
We're excited to invite you to our free workshop coming on July 24th. Trust your why. Your creative comfort zone needs you.
In this workshop, we'll explore the widely held misconception that growth only happens when you are out of your comfort zone. You can sign up at cindyingram.com/trust.
We can't wait to connect with you again in our next episode. Until then, trust your creativity and hold your inspiration and yourself with compassion.